In today's episode,
Written with AI. Learn how to unlock your creativity with AI by Victor Odåsnac and Musa Wababai.
Okay, let's unpack this. You know the feeling, right? Staring at that blinking cursor. Maybe it's been hours, maybe. Maybe it feels like years sometimes. All those unfinished novels tucked away, those proposals that just kind of stalled out. Creative dreams that, well, honestly, feel like they've ghosted you.
Yeah, the sources we're diving into today, they hit you right away with this statistic that just, well, it feels heavy. Get this, 97 out of 100 people who start writing a book, they never finish it. 97%. It just highlights how writing can feel incredibly lonely.
It's messy, right? Totally. So many internal excuses pop up, and it feels like it's just you against that blank page.
It really is. It often is a solitary thing, and while, that can be great for some people, meditative even, for most of us, that solitude just makes the internal hurdles bigger. The doubt, the lack of momentum, feeling buried, it's tough.
Absolutely. But what if it didn't have to be quite like that? What if writing wasn't this, intense staring contest with a screen? What if it felt more like, I don't know, jamming with a brilliant bandmate who never gets tired?
Exactly. That's the core idea these sources are putting forward. This concept of AI, not as a replacement, no, but as a writing sidekick, a co-pilot. They frame this whole exploration, this deep dive, as looking into how AI could maybe turn writing from that lonely slog into something more like a lively dance, maybe.
Yeah.
Potentially helping you be one of those elusive 3% who actually finish.
Okay, so pulling from all the material you shared with us, our mission today is really to get our heads around this AI-assisted writing landscape. What is it? How do these tools even work? What can they genuinely do? And just as important, what can't they do? And then the big one, how do you figure out how to use it effectively? Ethically, too, to unlock your own creativity and, finally get those projects done.
Right. So, okay, you're sitting there, maybe feeling that weight, that unfinished project looming. Where do the sources suggest this AI sidekick actually jumps in? How does it help?
Well, what's really compelling is how these sources describe AI tackling very specific pain points that writers face all the time. First off, there's that blank page paralysis. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
They describe AI as this idea fountain that never runs dry. So if you're stuck, you can ask it for suggestions, maybe opening lines, different angles on a topic. It acts like this constant creative spark, just on demand, available 24/7.
Okay, so it's kind of like having that friend who seems to have read absolutely everything and can always suggest something new, but this friend never gets tired or runs out of patience.
Pretty much, yeah. So that addresses the starting point. But what about once you actually have some ideas down?
Right, then it kind of shifts roles. It becomes, as the sources put it, your trusty editor-in-chief. They position it like a really friendly GPS for your writing journey. It helps spot awkward phrasing, clunky sentences, grammar mistakes, punctuation issues. Basically, a hawk-eyed proofreader who never needs a coffee break.
Huh. But it's not just flagging problems, is it?
No, exactly. It also offers potential fixes, suggests smoother ways to say things. It's almost like having a coach whispering, hey, maybe try phrasing it this way instead.
And they also talk about AI being a language magician, don't they? Helping you play with the words themselves.
Exactly. It can help you shift the tone of a passage, for instance. Or suggest more vivid adjectives, maybe punchier verbs, to make your writing really pop. Think of it like a wordsmith friend who helps you dress your sentences perfectly for whatever occasion you need.
Beyond just the sentence level, though, I remember seeing something in the sources about help with structure, too.
Yes, definitely. It helps organize your thoughts. The analogy they use is pretty good, like having a guide for a jigsaw puzzle when you don't have the box picture. AI can suggest outlines. It can highlight potential logical gaps or maybe missing links in your argument, or even summarize long sections you've written, just to help you make sure your core message stays sharp and focused.
And there's one detail the sources highlight that really resonates, especially thinking about that 97% stat. It never judges.
Ah, that's huge.
Right. You can rewrite a sentence 50 times, completely change direction on a paragraph, maybe even a whole chapter. And the AI doesn't sigh, it doesn't get frustrated. It's just endlessly patient and supportive, which can make that blank page feel less like this, insurmountable wall and more like, well, like a playground to experiment in.
That patient playground idea sounds pretty appealing, honestly.
Yeah.
But okay, if it can do all that, it definitely raises a question, what is AI not doing? The sources seem pretty clear that there are some common myths, some misunderstandings we need to tackle head-on about this Sidekick.
Yes, absolutely crucial to get the limitations the sources point out. The biggest myth they really tackle is this idea that AI is coming for your job or that it's going to replace your creative genius.
Right, the robot takeover narrative.
Exactly. The sources firmly state, this isn't robots hijacking keyboards. Think of AI more like the world's best sous chef.
Incredibly skilled. Right, at chopping vegetables, prepping ingredients, all that stuff. But you are the head chef. You decide if those ingredients become a spicy curry or a comforting soup. Without your direction, your taste. It's just prepped food. The magic, the actual intention, comes from you.
And what's really important to grasp here, as the sources explain, is how AI works fundamentally. It reads massive, massive amounts of existing text, and it learns to stitch together patterns it's seen before, which leads directly to the second myth. AI doesn't write perfectly original content in the human sense of invention. It can't.
Explain that a bit more.
It's much more like a highly talented parrot with an absolutely enormous vocabulary, or maybe a DJ expertly remixing existing songs. It's not sitting down and having a completely fresh, never-before-had daydream or idea. It's recombining what's already out there.
And it's almost ironic, isn't it? But the sources point out that we humans write plenty of dull, unoriginal, even robotic-sounding text already.
Huh! That's true. Sometimes AI, just by suggesting new combinations or phrases we wouldn't think of, can actually add a touch of life to otherwise kind of generic writing.
Another critical myth the sources really highlight is that AI understands context or nuance or emotion like a human does. It doesn't. It can't feel anything. It's basically a sophisticated mirror reflecting patterns it found in the data it was trained on. So that heartfelt apology you need to write, that soul-stirring poem, the unique pang of grief or joy in your story, that magic, that emotional core must come from you. AI can help structure those feelings into words, maybe, but the spark originates inside you.
And finally, they're very clear that these AI tools aren't infallible, not even close sometimes. They can confidently just spit out complete nonsense, mix up facts, or even hallucinate information, essentially acting like a miniature fake news factory if you're not careful.
Right, blindly trusting the output without checking it. That's risky. Proofreading, fact-checking, critical thinking, those are still your absolute best friends. Non-negotiable.
So it's less about a rise of the machines kind of takeover, as the sources frame it, and much more about the rise of the digital sidekick. It's a partnership, really, where the human brings the unique perspective, the emotion, the spark, the magic, and the AI brings the tireless help, the pattern recognition, maybe some raw material to work with.
Okay, yeah, that distinction is really helpful. So if it's this partnership with these specific abilities, but also these crucial limitations, how did the sources suggest someone actually, well, get started? How do you even begin working with this sidekick?
First step, according to the sources, is just getting clear on what you're actually writing and maybe what kind of writer you are. Are you drafting a novel, pounding out emails all day, creating social media content?
Right, different tasks, different needs.
Exactly. General AI tools like, say, ChatGPT or Gemini, they're described as Swiss Army knives. Versatile, good for lots of different tasks. But if you're working on a bigger specific project like a book, the sources do mention more specialized tools, ones designed with tailored prompts and structures specifically to help keep that longer form flowing.
And this brings us to what the sources say is the absolute core skill you need: prompting.
Ah, yes, the prompting.
They describe it as this delicate art, almost, of talking to your AI sidekick in a way that actually gets you useful results. And doing it without sounding like, well, a robot yourself. It's compared to being a master chef, you can have the best ingredients in the world, but you need to know how to combine them, mix them, season them just so.
Right. Because just typing in write about dogs is going to get you something incredibly generic, isn't it? Like raw ingredients just dumped on a plate. But typing something like write a funny short story about a golden retriever who is absolutely convinced it is secretly a cat, set in a tiny Brooklyn apartment, focusing on its attempts to nap on high shelves.
Okay, now you're giving us specifics.
Exactly. That gives the AI direction, a setting, a character trait, a goal. The clearer, the more specific your instructions are, the better the response is likely to be. They use this analogy of asking the right provocative question at a dinner party to spark a truly good story.
Yeah, I like that one. And to become what the sources call a prompt artist, you need to be specific, like you said. Set the tone you want. Add context about your overall project. Ask for a particular style or format, poem, list, story outline, whatever. You can even include constraints like a word count. It's basically you handing the AI a detailed map instead of just pointing vaguely and saying, go somewhere interesting.
And it's not just a one-way command either, right? The sources describe it more like a conversation.
Definitely. A back-and-forth dance. Between your curiosity and the AI's ability to process information and generate text, the better you lead that dance with your prompting, the better the collaboration is going to be.
Speaking of collaboration, how do the sources describe that co-creation process actually playing out in practice? It's not just like prompt and then get a finished product back, is it?
No, not at all. Not if you want something good, anyway.
Okay.
It's described more like sitting side by side with this tireless partner. The sources share a story. I think it was a novelist, Emma, who was stuck on a plot point in her thriller. She fed her existing plot details into an AI, and it suggested a twist involving a minor character's secret past that she just hadn't even considered. Now, this wasn't the AI writing the twist for her, but it was nudging her, towards fresh terrain, acting like a creative muse, bouncing ideas back.
Interesting. Like a brainstorming partner.
Yeah. Or they mention a songwriter, Raj, who wanted to break out of his usual patterns. He fed some initial lines into an AI and asked for lyrics in the style of like a 1920s jazz standard.
Okay, quirky.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what he got back was this kind of quirky, unexpected blend that directly inspired him. He ended up mixing some of the AI's output with his own melodies and structure.
So you have to be open to the weirdness sometimes?
Yes. The sources really emphasize that. You have to be open to the quirks. Because AI doesn't understand things, right? It only spots patterns in remixes. So it might throw out truly odd or bizarre suggestions. But sometimes, those strained combinations, they use the example, a clock melting into a whisper. Sometimes that can be the spark, the thing that ignites something unique and powerful that you wouldn't have come up with on your own.
That's fascinating, taking those weird suggestions and kind of molding them. But that brings up a really important question about whole identity, your voice. How do you make sure your own unique style doesn't get lost when you're constantly dancing with an AI?
Yeah, that's a big concern. The sources describe your writing voice as your unique melody. That's the core. In this partnership, the AI is presented as the accompanist. It can add depth, harmony, rhythm, sure. But it should never steal the spotlight from your melody.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Think of it like a vast color palette. AI can suggest new hues, maybe new combinations you hadn't thought of. But ultimately, you are the artist. You choose which colors fit your flavor, your vision. They even mention some tools that can act like friendly mirrors, sort of showing you the rhythm and tone of your existing style.
Ah, so you can use it to understand your own voice better.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of insight helps you refine your prompting, right? To ask the AI to generate suggestions that sound more like you. You can even train custom AI models on samples of your own writing, essentially teaching your AI sidekick to think more like a loyal editor who really gets your quirks and stylistic preferences.
So blending AI suggestions with your own style, it's definitely described as a dance, not a takeover.
Absolutely. If the AI suggests a phrase or a sentence that just feels off-key or not like you rewrite it, you tweak it, or you just toss it out. Consistency is key. The sources suggest maybe using your AI tool regularly to analyze and refine your style as it evolves naturally. Using the AI as a tool to understand yourself better as a writer.
It really sounds like using AI this way could actually be a method to amplify your existing creativity and voice, not diminish it. It becomes this sort of playful partnership that helps you find the clearest, brightest way to express your own thoughts and ideas.
And this partnership idea extends really deeply into areas that are often, let's be honest, the most tedious part of writing. Editing and revising. Traditionally, that's slow, careful work, like sculpting marble with a tiny chisel,
Oh, yeah. Painstaking.
Yes. And AI is presented here as swapping that tiny chisel for something more like a sleek laser pointer, one that can spot flaws almost instantly and suggests smoother curves. It's positioned as this smart, incredibly speedy partner for polishing your words.
And it goes beyond just a basic grammar check based on the sources.
Way beyond. AI-powered editors, because they process so much text, they can often understand context and tone much better. They can spot meaning-shifting mistakes or awkward constructions that a simple spell check would just sail right past. It's less like a rigid grammar rulebook and more like a really observant friend gently nudging you, hey, does this sound right?
And they also highlight its role as a creativity coach during revision.
Yeah, like if all your sentences are starting to sound the same length, or your paragraphs lack variety and rhythm, AI can suggest variations. It helps you prune the prose garden, basically, to make room for your most vibrant ideas to really bloom.
And revising with AI is also described as boosting confidence sometimes.
It seems so. It can quickly analyze if a paragraph reads well, or if a transition feels smooth, which could potentially save you from endless tweaking, just spinning your brain in circles, wondering if you're actually making things better or worse.
Which is a terrible feeling.
Right. Now, the sources are very clear. It's not a perfect replacement for human judgment. It's still a sidekick, remember? But AI can handle many of the tedious, time-consuming parts of revision. And that frees you up to focus your precious creative energy on sharpening your core ideas, adding that unique personality, and making sure the emotional heart of your writing beats strongly.
So, okay, theory is great, but are there examples in the sources of how real writers are actually using this stuff to thrive right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, the sources share several pretty compelling case studies. There's Emma, the novelist we mentioned, who was stuck in that creative fog. She started using AI specifically for brainstorming plot twists and character motivations. She says it just lifted her block, suggested arcs and turns she simply hadn't imagined. She calls AI her creative sparring partner.
Okay, sparring partner, I like that.
Then there's Raj, a freelance writer who felt like he was just drowning in research for his articles. He started using AI tools to quickly summarize complex information and suggest initial content outlines. The sources report this reclaimed hours of his week, basically, helped him build a much more thriving and less stressful career. He likens it to a supercharged research assistant.
Wow, okay, that's practical.
And Maya, a poet, used AI in a really fascinating way, kind of as a mirror for emotional depth. She would feed her verses into an AI and ask how it interpreted the feelings being conveyed. And this reflection, seeing her work through this weird, non-human lens, apparently deepened her self-awareness and enriched her poetry. She calls it a dance between human heart and machine mind.
That's quite profound, actually.
Isn't it? And even established writers like a best-selling thriller author named Michael mentioned in the sources. He's apparently experimented with AI for generating different versions of outlines or mimicking character dialogue styles. He reportedly jokes that AI is his co-author who never steals the spotlight but always has your back.
Okay. These stories, as presented in the sources, they consistently seem to show AI amplifying the writer's existing abilities, breaking down creative blocks, tackling time crunches, turning challenges into opportunities for innovation, maybe?
That's the picture they paint, yeah.
Yeah.
But with such a powerful tool, one that's all about pattern recognizing and remixing, what are the more complex considerations? The tricky parts the sources bring up.
Right, the ethical side. Yes, they are very clear that using this new tool comes with some significant ethical considerations, things writers and readers are really grappling with right now. The first major area is plagiarism.
Of course.
Because AI learns by remixing patterns from these huge data sets of existing text, there's a real question. What happens if the AI's output sounds too similar to something that already exists? Who's responsible then? The user. The AI itself, the company that made it. The line feels blurry, and the sources suggest transparency is becoming increasingly important, letting readers know when and how AI played a role in the creation.
Then there's the whole concept of originality itself. As we talked about, humans really value that unique spark of invention. AI is fantastic at remixing existing ideas and styles, but can something created mainly through remixing by a machine be truly original?
It's a philosophical question almost.
It really is. The sources use that analogy again, the master chef combining familiar flavors in a totally novel way. Is that originality? It really pushes us to think about how we define creativity and originality in this new context.
And authorship is another big one, right? An evolving question.
Huge. If an AI heavily assists in the writing process, who gets credit as the author? Is it solely the human who typed the prompts? Is it the programmers who built the AI? Could it be the AI itself, maybe in some future state? For now, the sources suggest the human behind the screen is generally considered the author, but they acknowledge this could get way more complex. It's a bit like asking if you praise the painter or the paintbrush they used.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. These challenges aren't simple, are they?
Not at all. And the sources present them as things we just need to navigate consciously, thoughtfully. They suggest that embracing AI as this quirky, powerful partner might actually push us as humans to be clear about our own intentions, maybe more creative in our unique contributions, and definitely more ethical in how we present our work.
Looking at these big picture questions, it makes me think about how storytelling has changed over time anyway. I mean, radically. Do the sources place AI in that larger historical context at all?
Absolutely, and this is where they bring in some really useful analogies, I think. They use the example of how capturing moments at, say, a wedding has evolved over time. Once, only the very wealthy could afford a painted portrait, right? Then came film photographers, then digital pros. And now almost everyone has a smartphone in their pocket, taking pictures, sharing them instantly. But despite this explosion of tools and images, there are more professional photographers than ever making a living telling wedding stories beautifully.
Interesting parallel. The tool changes, but the storyteller adapts.
Exactly. The sources see AI's role in storytelling in a similar light. Storytelling itself has evolved so dramatically, from quill and parchment to typewriters, then word processors, and now these incredibly powerful digital tools. It moved from solitary desks to potentially collaborative digital studios. The tools change, sometimes drastically. But storytellers don't vanish. They adapt, they multiply, they find new ways to tell stories using the new tools.
So the human-AI relationship in this evolving landscape,
Yeah.
it's framed as that dance again.
Yes, a dance where the AI brings incredible rhythm, maybe endless ideas, tireless assistance, but the human must lead with emotion, intuition, intention, unique perspective. That's non-negotiable. The AI is like this enchanted library, just full of potential ideas and patterns. But the human is the one who chooses which doors to open and what story to actually build inside those walls.
The challenge, though, as the sources gently highlight, is making sure that in all this rush of digital noise and endless remixing, that the authentic human heartbeat doesn't get lost in the process.
That's the core tension, yeah. Looking ahead, the sources don't present a single fixed future. It's more like a spectrum of possibilities, from AI maybe just generating initial rough drafts that a human polishes, all the way to these much more seamless co-creation collaborations we've been talking about. They even muse that storytelling could become a kind of living, breathing conversation between human and machine.
Wow.
Ultimately, they argue AI isn't replacing the heart of storytelling. Just like technology didn't stop weddings from being about human connection and love, storytellers evolve, they multiply, and this new tool is simply another invitation, really, to join that ongoing dance of creation.
Okay, so to kind of bring this deep dive into AI-assisted writing toward a close, we've really explored what this tool is presented as in the sources, your potential idea fountain, a diligent editor, maybe a surprising language magician, a structural organizer.
And the sidekick roles.
Yeah. And we've tackled those crucial myths head on. It's not replacing you. It's not truly original in the human sense. It doesn't have feelings. And it's definitely not perfect, requires your critical input.
Absolutely key points.
We looked at how you can start using it effectively, stressing that prompting is just, well, it's the absolute key, like asking that perfect story-igniting question. We touched on how AI can act as that mirror or accompanist to help you find and refine your own unique voice amidst the collaboration.
Finding your melody.
Exactly. We heard how real people like Emma, Raj, Maya, Michael, how they're already thriving by partnering with AI, tackling those creative blocks and time pressures. And we highlighted the important, complex, ethical stuff around plagiarism, originality, authorship that the sources raise.
The core message that really resonates from all the material you shared seems clear, doesn't it? AI is presented as an ally, a companion, a co-pilot in the creative process. It's not a replacement for the writer.
Right. The real magic, the intention, the choice, the feeling that all bubbles up from your heart, from your unique perspective on the world. AI, in this context, just helps turn up the volume on your voice and your story.
It's much like that photography analogy evolving. AI makes the act of creation maybe more accessible, potentially more powerful for more people.
And as storytelling itself evolves, potentially becoming this living, breathing conversation between human and machine that the sources kind of envision, they do pose a fascinating final thought. Think back to that wedding analogy, moving from the solitary quill to the keyboard, camera to smartphone, lonely desk to maybe a collaborative digital studio. Given that evolution, and given that you might now be able to collaborate with a tireless AI sidekick, what kind of unique stories do you think you could tell now? Stories that you might not have been able to before?
The sources seem to present AI not as something to be feared, really, but more as an exciting invitation. An invitation to step onto the floor and join the dance of this evolving writing revolution.